provided her answers for us, as she's unable to be here tonight. I'm going to read those through for you. Her answer to question 1. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, established by the United Nations in 1948 and adopted by Australia as one of the first signatories, provides 30 fundamental rights or principles applying to all persons and which underpins the concept of democracy. Article 22 gives all persons the right to social security and governance that allows them to achieve economic, social and cultural development. In addition, the right to determine one's political status is enshrined in Articles 19 and 20 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which first came into force in Australia in 1976. I understand that the Australian Human Rights Commission Act extends these rights to every external territory, including Norfolk Island. Thus, in principle, Norfolk Island people have these rights, but there is debate about how and whether these universal rights are applied in practice. I believe that the articles of the UDHR and all related conventions are the foundation for any models of governance in a democracy. So, my short answer to this question is yes. I affirm my commitment to ensuring that all human rights must be at the foundation of whatever model of governance the NIGC proposes. One of the challenges for attaining consensus will be debating different interpretations of the way in which our universal human rights are understood and applied, but without doubt they must be upheld. Question 2. I understand that some members of our community have grave concerns about open immigration, which seems to be specifically related to Australia, but I assume equally applies to peoples from any other place, such as New Zealand or the Pacific Islands, to name other nearby neighbours. I also understand that there is a long history of some Norfolk Islanders who desire more restrictive rules about who can and cannot live here, which has been debated over many years. Given that we are an external territory of Australia, Australia's national immigration laws and regulations provide a natural filter when it comes to the movement of people into Norfolk Island. That is, immigration applicants must meet the national standards, which at times can be considered quite harsh. Likewise, the realities of life here also provide a natural filtering mechanism. It doesn't work for everyone who comes here. In my opinion, however, planning for population management for Norfolk Island is essential due to our limited and fragile resources and must be consistent with whatever long-term vision we have for a sustainable way of life and viable economy. I don't agree with putting a moratorium in place on immigration, as I've not seen any evidence that Norfolk Island is an imminent threat of being overpopulated, and I base this statement on the recent review by the Council of Elders of 20 years of census data, which showed that our total population has remained relatively stable for that whole period. I agree that a sustainability study should be conducted regularly, say every 5 to 10 years, and take into consideration factors such as demographic shifts of our population, for example age distribution, and carrying capacity of our island resources, particularly in light of escalating climate change and its predicted impacts, as well as prevailing global influences and their impact on our community. I understand the last such study was done in 2021 and is available on the website. Of course, if the call for immigration restrictions relates to issues such as the distribution of one nationality in relation to others, then we need to be very careful about and not breaching our obligations under human rights conventions. These include the right of all persons, including Australian citizens or otherwise, to move freely and choose a place of residence without restrictions. This was addressed in the 1997-98 inquiry into Norfolk Island's Immigration Act and Human Rights. Question 3. Yes, of course, I believe it is imperative that the NIGC builds into its proposals appropriate safeguards to ensure that whatever new model of governance we propose, and which is accepted by the Commonwealth, cannot be swept away at a whim. It is imperative that it is given a fair and reasonable time to run its course, with the added proviso that we regularly review it to ensure it delivers both short-term and long-term benefits to the community. I believe the new model must include checkpoints and clear measurable indicators to evaluate it, as well as some flexibility to make adaptations to the model in the face of possible external and internal factors that may make change necessary. I'm thinking here of factors such as major political upheavals, another global financial crisis, or profound unexpected impacts of climate change. I think that maintaining some form of ongoing advisory panels, such as the NIGC, with access to experts that review the functionality of the governance model against a predetermined set of criteria, will be one possible mechanism to protect the new governance model. Question 4. Historically, the Norfolk Island community has experienced a number of governance arrangements, including direct rule, advisory councils and self-government. For various complex reasons, these have not succeeded indefinitely. I believe that if the NIGC is going to be successful in its mission, it should go into the task with an open mind and commit to a wide-ranging review of all previous governance models that have been tried for Norfolk Island, as well as those that have been tried for other similarly remote small island territories. We need to have a good understanding of what has been shown to work before and under what conditions, and likewise what has not worked before and why. Using history wisely gives us the best opportunity to avoid repeating mistakes. The NIGC also has wide-ranging terms of reference that allow us to be creative and perhaps design an entirely new model of governance. We should be creative and brave enough to consider this a possible outcome. This will be up to all of us, I hope, with the NIGC consulting with all sectors of our community all along the way. Just because a model looks good on paper doesn't mean it feels good for the people who have to live with it. Question 5. Since making Norfolk Island my permanent home, I have immersed myself in reading about its history, as well as keeping track of contemporary political and social forces shaping our lives, and talking about it with those whose lived experience is far greater than mine. Of course, my understanding can be nowhere near the level of those who have called it home for generations, or even those with decades of life here. The more I read, however, the more complex our history becomes, and I realise that many actions have been undertaken that have negatively impacted the community at many different levels. Mistakes have been made that have been disruptive and painful, often through poor planning, inadequate community consultation, and phase 2 applied mandates. I think the NIGC must commit itself to reviewing the history of governance models applied previously and distilling out not what's failed, but also what's worked, and reasons for success or failure. I don't believe the implementation of the new model will automatically get it right for the rest of time. I believe that there will be future failings as well, but if we can, as a community, adopt a spirit of carefully analysing all our successes and failures objectively and looking for lessons to be learned, over time we will be better placed to develop an adaptable model of governance suited to our island home. Question 6. Personally, I think that going onto the NIGC with a preferred model of governance would be ethically unsound. To go into something like this with a preference would indicate bias. If all members of the NIGC go into it with their own individual preference, then I could see potential for great conflict and possibly the failing of the NIGC.
7.5.
Into a win-lose approach. I go into this with a completely open mind and willingness to investigate, to learn, to listen, to consider multiple sources of information deeply and objectively, and then to collaborate with my colleagues, whom I hope will all be doing the same, to compile all our data into something that ticks enough of the boxes to be accepted by the community. At the end of the day, compromise is going to be imperative. I believe I haven't got the time to answer the rest of Kate's questions. Answers.
Thank you, Lisa.